I want to just say that I'm sure all of you, particularly the ladies, are aware of what's been going on in the news these last months. We've seen people like Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, Matt Lauer, Kevin Spacey, and others, including Eric Schneiderman, the former Attorney General of the state of New York, be accused of abusing women in various capacities. It's a horrible thing, and it's a good thing, however, that these people, men particularly, are finally getting exposed for the outrageous people that they are. And women certainly don't deserve to be treated this way. And I met a lady just this past week who's my guest today. I'm delighted to have appear for today's session. Her name is Jianny Adamo, and Jianny is going to be speaking about narcissistic men. What an ideal topic to speak about during this Me Too movement that we're talking about. This is going to be all about men who make women basically miserable while taking advantage of women, which is kind of a one step away from physically really abusing women, which is a subject that's been always near and dear to me. So without much further said, I'd like to introduce Jianny now. How do you do? Welcome to my show.
Thank you, Robert. It's really nice to be here.
Very good.
And it was great that we met this week on the topic of dating red flags, how to avoid narcissists, scammers, and other toxic people to help you find someone that is right for you.
Right, wonderful. Good, good. Well, we're going to get right into it, and I'm going to ask you the first question, Jianny. How did you get involved in educating the public on identifying narcissists and predators, etc.? Give us a little idea.
Okay. Well, just to give you a little background on me, I am a licensed mental health counselor, and I specialize in marriage counseling, couples counseling, relationship coaching, and it is my joy to assist and support couples to bring them together, to bring back their spark, to bring their communication online, to bring them together through a crisis. Right. I also support individuals who are divorcing to heal their heart and their broken heart and reinvent themselves and embrace a life that's worth, embracing. And my last piece, and this is what brings me here, is that I myself became a target of a sexual predator after my divorce. And for most ladies who are leaving a long-time marriage, a long-time relationship, if they have not dated in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, we are big-time targets of scammers and sociopaths and predators, and I did not know that. So now that has become my business to educate the public on the red flags, what to watch out for, especially if you're coming out of a long-term marriage or a divorce, a long-term relationship. The world has evolved dramatically, and the online world has helped, unfortunately, a lot of these predators really become even more destructive in their game. So starting with narcissists and sociopaths, basically these individuals are people who target others for exploitation. It's all about them. It's a one-sided relationship. There's a lot of emotional abuse that goes on. The emotional abuse is hard to detect because they're also quite sweet and charming, and they tell you that they love you, or they're bringing a lot of gifts to you, so you think, okay, they're making mistakes, but reality it's all a game. They know what they're doing, and it's all about exploiting their partner. So it's good to be aware what the red flags are so you don't get mixed up with one of these predators.
Let me ask you, what are the red flags now that a woman should look for?
Okay, so today I want to discuss 5 red flags that a woman should be looking out for when she is dating so she can avoid the narcissist, the predator, the scammer, because they're very slick and they're very good at what they do. The first red flag I call the charming and disarming play, okay? So they're going to be very sweet, they're going to be alluring, they're going to be very silly, they're going to have you laughing, they're going to amuse you, and you're going to be taken off guard. That's the whole purpose of it. Right. So when you are dating and when you're out, and even in the workplace, if you are sensing that someone is just being a little bit too charming, I want you to start recognizing that charming is a verb, not a noun. So I want you to think, this person is charming me. Okay, this person is charming me, not they're charming, but they're charming me. So that means that they're controlling you through allure, sweetness, and just like this tenderness or whatever it is that they're doing, silliness, but it's a form of control to lure you in.
Right.
And with the sociopath that I was involved with, that was one of his traits. He was extremely charming, and he had me laughing and amused continuously, even when I was very, very angry because of some of his behaviors. He could quickly, and I noticed that because I'm very introspective, and I would notice, I'm like, how does this happen to me, that I go from being very angry because of a certain behavior that he just displayed to becoming extremely sweet and like laughing, and now all of a sudden he has me laughing because he just did something very sweet and tender and adorable and cute, and I would shift from the anger to laughing and being connected with him and staying in the moment with him. And I recognized that while I was in the relationship, which I had never experienced that before in my life. I never have been in a relationship with anyone where my emotions can shift so quickly like that just by his utterance of a word or two. So watch out for individuals who can shift your emotions that quickly.
Yeah.
They're emotional manipulators. This is why you need to start looking at these red flags. Now, the red flags are for you to start looking at patterns of behavior. So one red flag may not tell you that you're dealing with a sociopath or a narcissist or a scammer, but you want to start counting these red flags. I count 3. If I have 3 of any combination of these or 3 of the same thing over and over again, I have my answer. This is an emotional manipulator. This is a person that I am not emotionally safe with. Okay? So that's the first one.
Okay.
The second red flag that I want to discuss is called, I'm naming these as intrusive and evasive play. What this means is that the predator is really good at interrogating you, but in a way that you don't even know that you're being interrogated. So you're releasing a lot of personal information about yourself, your lifestyle, your preferences, and things, you know, in your life that he wants to know about. He wants to ultimately know about the kind of man that you want so that he can replicate that and give you that, because he's an actor. Sociopaths, narcissists, scammers, they're actors. They're very good at mimicking us. So they will display the traits that you're looking for and speak the language that you speak so that they can gain your trust. So they're very good at being intrusive and yet being evasive for themselves. So every time you ask a question, so you would have asked someone maybe like, have you been married before? And their response is, oh, I've been in long-term relationships. So he didn't really answer your question. He gave you another answer. From that, you would need to do a follow-up question to verify if he's been married or not and how long have his relationships been. So as a woman, you want to be the one who's asking most of the questions. As the women, we need to give out less information and ask more questions. We are in charge.
Good point.
Of the getting to know process. So you're looking for a reliable and responsible person, and men are generally pretty concrete. And so when you ask them a question and they're not playing games with you, they will give you a concrete answer. Yes, I've been married. I was married once, and whatever, it ended 2 years ago, whatever it is. So when you ask a question direct like that and they're not giving you a direct answer, that is a red flag, and especially if they're asking you lifestyle questions. These predators are also looking for people of a certain lifestyle, many of them. The young women are targeted for their youth and their innocence, and then the 35 and over, we are targeted for our emotional assets as well as our financial assets. So if you own a home, a car, if you have a job, or even alimony that's coming to you, this is all stuff that gets targeted.
I understand. Okay. The next.
Okay. The next red flag is the pity play. This one is all these sociopaths and narcissists, they tend to use our compassion, our empathy, and our sympathy against us. They play against our emotions. So watch out for them telling us stories or telling you stories of how they were abused in childhood. And every single story, they will have been the victim.
Right.
And every single story, they would have been the one who had been betrayed. I once went out with a guy for 2 weeks. And by the second week, I counted how many stories he had given me. And he was the victim of all of them. including his boss who betrayed him, the girlfriend betrayed him, the ex-wife betrayed him. Every single story he had given me, the common denominator was him, and in all of them, he played the victim. So I was like, this is not the guy for me.
Right.
I do not need this guy. And I recognize these are all pity plays, because when they tell you these stories, trust me, they sound very believable. They sound like they have been taken advantage of. But the truth of the matter is, usually what they're telling you is the reverse. It's how they've taken advantage of the other person. So think about that. So if you start seeing these displays of, oh, everybody's taking advantage of them, this is a red flag.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So we have a couple more that I want to go over, some more of these dating red flags.
Very interesting.
The next one I call the boundary testing play. The boundary testing play, basically, they are looking to see how suggestible you are, and they're looking to manipulate you and push through your emotional, physical, psychological, and even spiritual boundaries. They will be ignoring your no. They're going to try to separate you and disconnect you from your no. They're going to try to turn your no into a yes. This is all part of a control play. And of course, for those of us who are dating, we want to put our best foot forward. We don't want to be defensive. So many times they get away with pushing boundaries that we feel uncomfortable with because we don't want to be rude. We want to seem kind. So this is taking full advantage of the situation. I had, with the sociopath that I had been involved in, on our first date, he pushed through and tested a physical and a spiritual boundary all at the same time. And it actually sent me in a bit of a panic because I didn't know what to do, because I felt so awkward. And so I just kind of my brain just kind of went into like, I stayed kind of like in a frozen state. And then eventually, like when my brain bounced back, I just made a joke. So I used humor to kind of separate and deflect the situation.
Diffuse it, right?
Diffuse it, exactly. But in reality, if I had known about these predatory games and manipulative tactics that they use, I would have recognized it as, oh, he's testing my boundary, and this is an emotional manipulation. He is taking advantage of me because I am trying to be cordial and respectful and kind and sweet, and I don't want to come across as cold and defensive.
Right.
No one wants to come across as such in a dating environment. So anyways, so they take full advantage of that, and they start pushing through boundaries, knowing that we would try to be respectful and end up taking their emotional abuse.
Okay. And the final flag?
The final one is the push and pull play. This one has a lot of different names, and it's pretty dangerous. This one's called the tension and suspension. It's love bombing oscillating with unavailability. It's idealization and devaluation. And it's also known as the sweet and mean cycle or abuse and rescue cycle. So it's got lots of different names. This is why I'm naming them all, because some names will stick to you, and other names may stick to somebody else from a different population. But what's happening here with the push and pull play is there's an intermittent use of reward and punishment, which is highly addictive. So what happens here is with your brain is that it's causing confusion. 1 minute they're sweet and they're charming, the next minute they're pushing through your boundary and embarrassing you. 1 minute they are love bombing you, which is showering you with a ton of attention and communication. Then they ghost you and they disappear for an entire week, and you're left dangling and longing and in confusion. And many times this actually even happens within minutes. Once you're involved with a narcissist or a sociopath, it's like being on a roller coaster ride. So watch for the roller coaster ride of emotions. They're constantly creating fireworks of emotions, whether it's from the confusion of what they're doing, frustration because you don't get what's happening, or the love and how they're, showering you with so much attention and care. So what happens in the brain when this starts to happen is your brain goes into survival mode because there's too much there's too much conflict, there's too much confusion, and it goes into survival mode. And since they're showering you also with loving things and compliments and whatever, it moves into an addiction, which basically makes you addicted to your abuser. Your fireworks go off, and now you think you're in love, but in reality, they fabricated a sex and love addiction to them, to the narcissist. So now you're operating under an addiction, and you don't have a clue. Because you're not an addict, you don't behave like that, you haven't had an addictive relationship before, so you have no clue that this is happening in your life. So you now think you have met your soulmate because they have been mirroring your values, mirroring your words, your interests. So you think, oh, I have found my partner in life, and that's not the truth. So then this is why we end up staying in these relationships when we are no longer safe in these relationships.
I see. Very, very illuminating. Let me ask you, do married men perform any differently as narcissists than single men? Are they kind of same patterns? Or, in other words, does a married man behave differently, in your opinion, based on, I know you're not married, but
I'm divorced.
In your opinion,
I was married for 15 years.
I'm sorry, I didn't know.
I was the target of a sociopath upon my long-term divorce. Yes.
Okay, well
so
then you can tell me
and I work
experience.
with married couples. That's my expertise.
So do you think that a married man might tend to be taking advantage of his wife more than a single man because of the type of relationship? Because now they're married, and so the woman is almost like bonded to him and kind of has to, quote, put up with more than a single woman? Is that be the case?
I think they're exploitive on both sides of the coin.
Right.
Okay. When they're single, they're pursuing multiple women at the same time, and usually a lot of times the women don't know about the other one. This is part of the problem. They pin one against the other. It's just really chaotic and crazy. They ultimately want to trigger your chemistry. They ultimately want you to fall in love with them, because then they will dominate the relationship. You will be manipulated and controlled. And that's just the way it goes with them. They do not trust. Therefore, they cannot love. They don't have empathy or compassion. They cannot love. So therefore, all their relationships is about control and dominance. So this is why in the dating and the courting, and you're looking out for these red flags, because all of this is going to tell you this is a sign of a narcissist or a sociopath, and you need to stay away from them. So once they have you hooked, if they marry you or they don't marry you, you're in deep trouble, because now your own biology is working against you, because now you're in love, you're going to see the best in them, and you're going to hope for the best in them, because this is what we do. Love casts a positive bias on those it bestows. So when we're married or we're dating and we're in a committed relationship, we're always going to see their best, and we're going to always encourage their best. So now what happens is you become trapped. That's the problem. Now if you're married or in love with them, you're trapped, because your own biology, they make you work against your own self, and they trick your brain to feel that you cannot survive without them, and that's part of the addiction. That's what addiction does to the brain.
Right.
The brain thinks that you cannot survive without your alcohol, your drug of choice, and in this case, it's the relationship is the addiction or this person.
I see. What are the best defenses that a woman can employ to keep herself from becoming prey or a victim under these circumstances of being with a narcissistic man? Okay, and that is a great question. Our primary line of defense, if you never heard about these dating red flags, that is fine, because you still have something primal inside of you for survival, and that is called your intuition. And we're going to define that as the ability to understand something immediately without the need of conscious reasoning. It's a hunch. You can't put your finger on it. It's a nagging feeling, and you can't explain it. Remember how I said that on my first date with the psychopath, he had done a boundary testing, and I didn't know that was the case. So I said a joke. Humor is another sign of your intuition. So anytime someone is pushing through and it's an environment that is emotionally unsafe, you can end up
saying something humorous, and that's a sign that your intuition is signaling that there's something wrong here.
Okay. And what would be some examples of like a gut reaction? Anything else that maybe you haven't mentioned? Anything else?
Yes, there are a few more things that can
Okay, yeah,
come
you
up.
can elaborate
Okay.
for a moment.
Okay, some other things that will come up for you through your intuition is anxiety, curiosity. Curiosity is also really important for you to know that this is also part of your intuition.
Right.
These narcissists and sociopaths and scammers work outside of your reality. They do not operate and behave with human dignity, so they don't care about your morals and ethics. They will push through them. So because of that, because they're so different and they can be so reckless as well and carefree, that we are very curious into who are these people, and then we want to know more, and we stay entangled with them and end up in a relationship with them because they were so fascinating and so thrilling. So when your curiosity keeps being piqued by an individual, consider that also part of your intuition saying, hey, there's something outside of your reality here. Check to see if this person is not really working on an antisocial spectrum. Okay, doubt, hesitation, suspension, apprehension, and fear are all part of your intuitive self and your survival mechanism. Okay?
All right. Okay. Well, we'll resume in a moment. By the way, I forgot to mention that you are the founder of Fearless Love. That's your presentation. And I believe you told me that you've got a book that you've put together that you're looking to have published very shortly.
Yes.
Maybe you're looking for a publisher.
Yes, actually, yes. I am the founder of Fearless Love, relationship coaching and counseling, and I've written a book called Love Trauma, and it's based on my healing. It's what I put together to heal myself and go through the journey of understanding the chaos that I was in and the wound that I was dealt with because of this relationship that I had had.
Yeah.
So now this book is ready for publication. I'm actually seeking a publisher. So if there's a publisher listening right now or an agent, I would love it if they would contact me or contact us here or my website, which is fearlesslove.net. Contact us and make connection with me. Again, the book is about emotional, sexual, and spiritual recovery after a relationship with a sexual predator, which he's a narcissist / sociopath because the sociopath just takes narcissism to a new level.
Well, I witnessed your presentation live this past week, and slide presentation, which was really excellent, very, very clear and very explanatory. And I took a lot of notes, I must tell you. It was a learning experience even for myself. So I would hardly endorse what you have to say, and that's pretty much why I've invited you to be on the show today.